Ooh, take a look at this picture that I saw in the Calgary Herald today. The Calgary Herald is a Calgary news company, a newspaper and a website. Do you use newspapers still? I think newspapers are extinct. Now everyone just gets their news online. Okay, so sometimes I go on the Calgary Herald website and I read the news. And look at this. This is a picture of Calgary. I live in Calgary. Okay, it's so hazy. Look at that. You can barely see those buildings back there. Do you know what hazy means? Hazy means when there are small particles in the air, like dust or smoke, and you can't see very far. Okay, so look at this. It's a very hazy day. You can barely see those mountains back there. Okay, so that's what we call hazy weather. Now, why is Calgary so hazy these days? Well, it's because there are forest fires. Forest fires. Now, the forest fires aren't here in Calgary, and they're nowhere near Calgary. They're over in BC. BC is the province west of Alberta. So the wind is blowing the smoke from BC into Alberta. That's why the weather is so hazy these days. It's really crazy. Like yesterday, I went outside and I could look at the sun. I could look right at the sun, directly at the sun, without closing my eyes. That's how hazy it is. The sun was just like a yellow light somewhere in the sky. Okay, so I could look directly at the sun. Now, forest fires are very common in Canada. In the summertime, there are forest fires all across Canada. Okay, it's not something special that happens one time. It's all the time. Every summer, there are always forest fires in many places in Canada. Okay, Canada is mostly forest. Okay, take a look at this picture. So most of Canada is like this. Just thousands and thousands of miles of forest in every direction. Okay, so if you go in most places in Canada, you will just see this. But the thing is, most people don't live in places like this. But really, this is what most of Canada looks like. Okay, so there are a lot of forest fires that happen in Canada. Now, most of the time, the forest fires start naturally. Usually from lightning. If lightning strikes a dead tree, then the tree will burst into flame. It will catch fire, and then the fire will spread to nearby trees, and then suddenly there's a forest fire. Okay, so most forest fires start naturally, but some forest fires do start because people are careless. For example, some people go camping in the woods, right? And they start a fire, and then they might fall asleep and leave their fire, and the fire might spread to some nearby bushes or trees, and then suddenly a forest fire starts. So you need to be very careful. Forest fires can be very dangerous. They can kill a lot of people if people are not careful. Okay. Now, most people have fire pits in their backyards in Canada. Okay. This thing is called a fire pit. Okay. It's usually stones or a metal ring like that. That's called a fire pit. And a lot of people have fire pits in their backyards. Okay, so this is a very common thing to see in Canada, especially in the summertime. People sit in their backyards on lawn chairs. These are called lawn chairs, and they roast marshmallows or hot dogs over the fire, or they just sit there and enjoy the evening. Canadian summers are just beautiful. Sometimes the weather is just amazing. It's so great. I love Canadian summers. Now, sometimes if the weather is really dry, then there will be a fire ban. A fire ban. That means the city or the province will issue a fire ban, which means they say you cannot have a fire. Nobody can have a fire in their backyards because the weather is too dry and it's too dangerous. The grass might catch on fire, or, like the city doesn't want to have dangerous situation happening, right? A house catches on fire, then suddenly 3 or 4 houses are all caught on fire. Actually, I heard that just yesterday in the news here in Calgary, a house caught fire and it spread to 3 or 4 other houses. Okay, so I'm not sure if it was from a fire pit. I don't know, but it could have been, right? So you need to pay attention to this if you come to Canada. If you want to have a fire, you need to read the news and see if there is a fire ban. Okay, the news might say there is a fire ban in effect. That means there's a fire ban, you cannot have a fire. And then, the fire ban might last for a week or 2 weeks or something. And then the news will say the fire ban has been lifted. So now you can have a fire again. Okay? Now, I met a girl once who worked at a lookout tower in northern Alberta. Her job was to climb the tower every day and look out for forest fires. And if she would see smoke, then she would call the fire people on her satellite phone. Okay, so her job was to climb this tower several times a day and use her binoculars, to look for forest fires. Now, this kind of a job pays a lot of money. Maybe you could get this kind of job if you come to Canada. Okay, I think she was making like $10,000 a month. Maybe not that much, maybe like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, more than $5,000 a month for sure, but maybe closer to like $10,000 or maybe even more. I'm not sure. I should have checked that before making this lesson, but it's a high-paying job. It's a very high-paying job. The problem is there are no people. You're alone. You're completely alone. They fly you in here in a helicopter and they drop you off. You have a little house, just a little house to live. And every day you climb there, several times a day. That's your job. And you just live in the house. There are no people. There are no roads here. This is in the middle of a forest, way up in northern Canada. So there are no people here. She said she saw bears, she saw moose, she saw all kinds of wildlife, but she didn't see any people because there are no people up there, okay? So you're all alone for a very long time. I think the helicopter brings food like maybe once a month or something. So she would see some people maybe once a month. That's it. She would get her food in cans and then she would just be alone for the rest of the time. Can you believe it? I want to know, could you handle a job like this? Do you think you could handle a job where you didn't see other people for like a long time? How long is the longest time that you have gone without seeing anybody? I was thinking of that while I was making this lesson. I thought, how many days have I gone in my life without seeing anybody? I think probably like 2 or 3 days. That's it. But I want to know about you. Have you ever gone a single day without seeing other people? Could you handle a job like this where you would go for a few weeks or months without seeing human beings? That would be crazy. She worked here every summer. I think she would go like for 3 or 4 months every summer, and she would just live alone for like 4 months. And she would just read. She loved to read. So for her personality, I think she could handle it. But I don't think a lot of people could handle it. Could you handle it? Let me know down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.